Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us. I hope you're getting ready to have a great Memorial Day weekend. I'm D.S. Palmer, and this is the first time that Lex Mala Books is going to start hitting everybody with these podcasts. And the first thing we're going to talk about today is the Ron Paul campaign, the crazy things that have been happening over the last couple of weeks. I know that we're not getting into this when it is most relevant. Forgive me. Been a little bit busy, end of the semester stuff and whatnot. But just by way of introduction, since this is the first time that we have been coming at you from this medium, I wanted to give you a little bit of background on myself, how I came to find Ron Paul. Like so many other people, I was first drawn to President Bush, in part because my family is all very good Republicans. But the second time around, 2004, I was willing to give his whole concept of compassionate conservatism another shot. When that proved to be a little bit weird, I found Ron Paul in 2008 and was really drawn to his message, especially of peace, liberty, but peace was the biggest one. After it became obvious that his campaign was not going to really be able to catch fire in the 2008 season, wound up supporting Barack Obama because he was doing a great job as presenting himself as the peace candidate, the peacemonger, if you will. And it really seemed like that was really only the case after Ron Paul was able to start getting a little bit of footing. Or in other words, he was trying to make himself the Paulian alternative on the left. When that proved that it was absolutely not the case, that Barack Obama was going to wage just as much war as was President Bush or any Republican alternative, was again full of hope, especially as Ron Paul was having so much success winning the CPAC straw polls and things along those lines, that come the 2012 election season, that all sorts of great things were going to be in the works. Got really excited before Iowa when it looked as if every other candidate had ebbed and flowed and done through the different cycles, that Ron Paul was actually going to be catching the momentum at the right time right before they went to the caucus. Was very disappointed when it looked like that was taken from him from, I don't want to say stolen from him, but there was all sorts of weirdness and shadiness that was going around that, especially with how Santorum didn't seem like he gained any real popularity until it was actually time to go caucus. Just the first of many, when it looked like he had a stronger second place finish taken from him in New Hampshire. Lies looked like to finish in second place in South Carolina. Not the case. And then Nevada and Maine, which is, you could probably write a book about each of those two things as far as the downright fraudulent things that were happening then, was getting really down when it looked as if finally something that made sense was going to happen, and Ron Paul was going to be able to do just as he had always been planning, take advantage of the whole delegate situation. Started coming up with a little bit more wins, even forcing many of the mainstream media types to actually go in there and take a look at what was happening with the delegate race. The real 2012 delegatecount.com was actually going through and finding out exactly how many delegates he and Romney were able to collect. And then Oklahoma and Arizona happened. Don't want to get into all the details there, but down just to lay it down, fraud happened there. I think each person from Oklahoma and Arizona think that their state was the most fraudulent. As I'm from Arizona, I was very disappointed to see what happened there, when it simply looked like Ron Paul had a majority of the people, was going to be able to take a majority of the delegates, wound up having the convention canceled before it was really set to become a sweeping Ron Paul victory. And then, to borrow a phrase from a Russell Crowe movie, when it takes this long to come to a decision, they're going to decide to screw somebody. Sure enough, when they finally released the official total of who won how many delegates, there of Arizona's 29 delegates, Romney wound up with 26, Ron Paul with 3, despite Ron Paul having so many more people in his camp. At this time, and in part because there was a lot of weird stories about who was being booed and at what point in their speeches they were being booed. But Mitt Romney's son came to Arizona, gave a speech, and was booed. The national media picked it up as if the Ron Paul people were providing all of the booing. And his campaign chairman, Jesse Benton, came back and said that we all need to behave ourselves when we go to these things. I'm not one of the booers. I wasn't able to go to the convention. But when I read this stuff, it was exceedingly frustrating, because finally, people like me, who, first of all, are primarily concerned with peace, but also the budget, with liberty, with things along those lines, we have a candidate who is definitely speaking to our core principles in Ron Paul. We have a definite peace candidate. We have a candidate who is worried about the country if not the planet, that my kids are going to inherit, let alone the one that I'm here to deal with. He is also the one who is offering the most sound reactions to the immediate problems. For example, offering to cut $1 trillion off of the $15 trillion deficit. Having somebody actually speaking to these concerns was really invigorating, especially when it looked as if he was going to come through and pick up these wins in the delegate race that might, in our wildest dreams, lead to his actually gaining the nomination. To then be told that after watching so many of the primaries and caucuses be stolen from this candidate, that then when the establishment, the Republican Party, the Mitt Romney campaign turns around and starts doing the same thing in the conventions, continues to steal this thing from the guy who is doing the most that anybody's ever done to represent anybody my age, that we are supposed to behave ourselves and contain ourselves. My argument here is that is exactly what the establishment, the Republicans, the Romneys are counting on. They want everybody to submit to their authority, stand back, and just do exactly what they're told. All right? Don't want to go around acting like an a-hole here, but at the same time, I don't think that it's appropriate to, in the face of all of this fraud and these illegalities, to make sure that we are conducting ourselves with the utmost decorum. All right? Because that is exactly what these guys are hoping for, that they can shame everybody into putting on a brave face, smiling for the cameras and all that stuff, making sure that the end game is beating Barack Obama, even though nominating Mitt Romney is essentially another 4 or 8 years of Barack Obama, just like Barack Obama has been 4 years more of the George W. Bush administration. The hope is that if we can all be shamed into just accepting these results, no, there's not going to have to be any sort of ugliness on the way to a Mitt Romney administration or nomination. It is exactly just like what I try to portray in my book that you can find at Amazon or at lexmalabooks.com. It's called St. Bart's High, in which there is a dysfunctional public high school, or do I repeat myself, but there is a dysfunctional public high school where as everything continues to fall down around a handful of students who are trying to do the right thing, trying to go to school and learn, trying to take part in extracurricular activities, whatever, as they're going through all this, the school becomes more and more violent and dysfunctional, that finally their parents start taking note, and as the parents become more involved, the school starts saying, look, what's important is that you guys just continue to show up and do the right thing. You have to go to school. You need to be here. Just make sure that you come and you be as good an example as everybody else, or for everybody else, as you can. It's exactly the same situation here. Even though everything politically is falling to pieces around us as we see this candidate that we support and it speaks to all of our concerns continue to get robbed, to have from his campaign the message come out be, all you need to do is behave yourself and continue showing up and continue trying to take part in all this, is exactly the message that you're going to hear at any public school, and it's exactly the message that the establishment wants to hear. Now, this is a quiet weekend. The reason I'm putting this out right now is because essentially we got another 2 weeks before anything interesting is going to happen. It's going to begin on Tuesday with the Texas primary. Going to be another wave of conventions that are going to start happening 2 weekends from now. The message I want to put out there is now is not the time to worry about behavior and decorum. Now is the time to try to get out there and try to take as much of what has been taken from us as possible. All right? So spend 2 weeks trying to drum up some stratagem for that. I'm D.S. Palmer. If you like what you're hearing here, head over to Lex Mala Books and take a look at what we have to offer. And thank you for tuning in. Good day.